tell us what PCH is.
But basically, we started off as a sourcing company back in '96. Went to China. Found there was a lot of confusion around how to get a product out of China. I saw the opportunity was if we could simplify it. And when I went there first, I saw like confusion was a competitive advantage out there. So if we could take the confusion out of it, there was a great opportunity there. So we started off like sourcing. Now we add value from manufacturing, packaging, and fulfillment. So a lot of the customers that we work with, if you go online to their web stores and you order a product, and you can get it delivered to your home in 2 days directly from China, which is, you know, the big evil in our business is inventory. And the big barrier to a lot of companies making product is the inventory. And what we've done is we've taken the fulfillment centers and we've put it right next to the factories. So you wipe out that whole inventory challenge. And that's a big barrier to entry, and that's why even sitting here listening today to some of the companies and they talk about what they're doing, it's, you know, it's, if you wipe out the inventory challenge, anything is possible.
Silent partners to a global marketplace. A bridge between the world of ideas and the world of products. Welcome to PCH, the company behind the brands. Quietly, confidently, rethinking and reimagining the engines of global commerce, where a passion for partnership is defined simply as our partners' needs. Where step one begins somewhere in the imagination, on the back of a napkin perhaps, and ends countless twists and turns later at perfection. Our obsession with craftsmanship is more worthy of a workshop than a factory, where time is the #1 currency, and inspiration is in endless supply. Across the chain of manufacturing, where tolerances don't tolerate mistakes. From startups to global enterprises, we take pain out of the supply chain and complexity from the maze of global business. Delivering on products, delivering on promises. From dreamers crafting the future in a garage to a portfolio of the world's most iconic brands. Realizing the dreams of those who dream in technology. PCH, certainty in an uncertain world.
All right. Well, you'll have to break down the corporate promo there for us.
Yeah. That's anybody here buy a Chumby? Okay, well, Bunny's up there. We worked with Bunny to bring the Chumby to market. And again, for us, when we look at innovation comes from, you know, people playing with things and trying to make things. And again, Jay said this morning, you know, when you stop making things, you stop inventing and the country stops. And this is where we see, whether it's a sport or whether if the US stopped playing basketball 10 years ago, try and play again basketball against another country. It's hard. So it's the same with manufacturing. So what we want to do is we want to try and bring manufacturing capability to startups. And that's when we started the accelerator, which helps companies.
So to describe that, Emmerich's here.
Emmerich's up here, yeah.
Yeah, there it is in the back row there.
And again, so when you look at, everybody talks about the VCs are afraid of hardware. The big reason they're afraid of hardware is the inventory. So when you look at our first company that we brought through our accelerator, was a company called Lark. Lark, when you look at the space they're working with, in it's an accessory. There's one company in the accessory space that had raised over $200 million, and they brought products to market. Some of them had recalls. When you look at Lark as a startup, Lark had a product sold online and in every Apple store, and they had only raised $900,000. Okay, the $900,000 in that space is tiny. I mean, you couldn't do a software company to the same level. So for us, it's making it capital efficient by minimizing the inventory that's needed in the chain.
So how did they work with you? How did Lark, did they just come to you and say, we've got a product idea?
Yeah, so they worked with Amric, and they came to Amric and they said, look, we have this idea for a product. Julia, who's the CEO and founder, she had this idea for a product. It was a silent alarm, and it had sleep monitoring. So we were intrigued by the product. Mostly we were really liked Julia as an entrepreneur, and she had a great vision for the product and the company. So we knew that by giving her access to what we do for some of the bigger companies, we knew that if we would give her that access, it would enable her to bring the product to market much faster. And she had the product in the stores like within 9 months of our first meeting.
Mm-hmm. So in some ways, PCH is an interface to China's manufacturing capacity.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is. We've access to production lines all across southern China. Again, our clients come to us and they tell us what they want. We then will find the best, most suitable manufacturing process. And there's 3 parts of the business. We've manufacturing, we've packaging, and we've fulfillment. So we work with companies that are passionate about design, they're passionate about their brand, and they're passionate about the consumer experience. Because that's the only place where we can add value. If they don't care about those things, so if a big retailer comes to us, a big box retailer comes to us, we're not interested. We won't even have a conversation.
Because they're just interested in price?
They're interested in cheapest cost, and they don't care about brands, and they don't care about the consumer experience as much. So that's why we love movements like the Kickstarter. Kickstarter is going to be a phenomenal enabler for bringing products to market, because you're going direct to the consumers. And that's happening, there's similar in China. The e-commerce business in China is huge, and there's no reason why US startups can't play in the Chinese market. And we say today that in commerce, geography is history, because you can sell it anywhere. And I think Nathan said it earlier as well. The other thing we look at is, well, yesterday there was a phone company in Beijing launched an Android phone. Now, we see a lot of talk about Kickstarter, where Pebble sold, or they raised $10 million in 45 days or something. These guys sold $10 million in 90 seconds. So, and it's a startup, it's a phone company. So I would encourage startups here to play in a global market and to sell globally, because there's such an opportunity there. The other thing is, again, we get asked a lot here for accessories. Remember when we brought, I had a US entrepreneur in China about a year ago where we were working on a product for him, and we had a day free on a Saturday, and I said, okay, I wanted to get him to think different. So, and he was making an electronic part, and I brought him to see a car factory, to walk him down a production line of a car factory. And since then, he's been talking to me, why don't we make a car? And it's interesting, here we get lots of inquiries from people who want to make accessories. In China, we get lots of people who want to make devices. We want more people here to make devices, and it's possible. Mm-hmm.
But what about the sort of medium scale business? I can kind of get that a large American company can go to you, and a small maker company can maybe go to tech shop and make a couple hundred of something, but they grow out of that at some point if they're successful.
Yep.
At what point can they come to PCH?
So Aya from Little Bits has come to us recently, and that's a perfect example. And again, here's a great entrepreneur who we have a lot of confidence, and we see that here's an opportunity to take this idea and to put it on a global marketplace.
Right. But so what's that scale? I mean, are you making a bet with Little Bits or others that they will be really big?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we'll start out with them hoping that they will be big, and we'll do whatever we can. We'll give them access to our facilities and our service and our people to make it happen.
Right. Let me open, we haven't done questions at all, partly because it's hard to get mics around, but I'll try to repeat the questions. If you'd like to ask specifically, I think either questions about China, we do have a mic, if we could run around with that a bit, maybe just to raise your hand. Liam's quite a resource here, and I think it'd be kind of interesting to drill down the kinds of questions that you might have for him about what they do, how they do it, and even the changing nature of manufacturing in China. So we have someone right there.
Does PCH do like PCB design and all that, or do you come to you with fully designed prototypes?
So first of all, we like our customers to really know their product and to really understand it. So they've got to be able to think like Bunny from Chumby, think Aya from Little Bits. They really know their product. That's important for us. But we have the services. We can do the PCB layouts and all that as well.
But do you,
and we refine it.
I mean, part of the maker thing is that they've been prototyping, right? They're learning about it. Now, they may need to reduce the cost of parts. They may need to have a different manufacturing process, but they've kind of learned about the product enough to know kind of what that is. Alex?
I want to ask you, what are the dynamics within sort of the developing markets about selling between countries? Because I've heard, for example, if you make in China, you'll have a difficult time selling to India because of the economic competitiveness there.
No, I mean, again, this country of origin, if you sell it online, it's about the shipping. You will have cross-border challenges when it comes to the shipping the products and the duties and all that. There are challenges. That's commercial challenges, but there is no anti-competitive stuff there. No.
Right there.
What is the smallest scale project? Like, say I wanted to make 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, where would you guys kick in?
The 10,000 would be a good number.
I'm referring to what you said about selling in China. What do you say about all the infringement and the challenge with fakes, basically?
With copies? Yeah.
With copies, exactly.
For any company that we work with that want to sell on the Chinese market or that are making a product in the Chinese market, first thing we'll do is we'll tell them register with a Chinese patent. Don't register, don't expect an international patent is going to be recognized there. I mean, you can't defend it. Whereas if you go and you spend a couple of $1,000s, and it's not a lot, on a Chinese patent, you can defend it. The courts. Oh, absolutely, it works. We have defended some. Yeah, absolutely. If it's Chinese, on the Chinese, it will. We've defended them. Yeah.
Okay.
Are there other international centers of excellence for manufacturing besides China?
For the kind of products we work with, the ecosystem that's available in the Pearl River Delta is, for our kind of products, is definitely the best. And we've looked at other geographies. We looked at Malaysia about 3 or 4 years ago, and we looked at, we found a fantastic factory there, but it was great. We'd love to have worked with them, but they had one factory in the whole country that made the raw materials that were being used. So you had a 6-week lead time to get the raw material in there. And in our business, time is often the #1 currency, so you don't want to delay the lead time.
Michael?
Yeah, you mentioned that the big obstacle was inventory, and I would imagine a close second would be shipping. Where is the balance between manufacturing everything in one place, China, versus having to ship it everywhere, versus having it manufactured locally in various other areas and then saving on the shipping costs?
A lot will depend on the product, and a big part of what we do is we design for air freight, because if it's an air freight suitable product. So we will actually shrink the package to a very tiny size dimension. And again, the value of the product as well is important. So the ratio of value per the cost of air freight is important. Again, for us, where it comes to what we call the postponement, if you have to move raw materials or semi-finished product into another geography and put inventory in there, that's high risk. And that's the kind of thing that scares VCs from funding this kind of sector.
Can I ask, what kind of new products are you seeing that are exciting?
I could tell you, but I have to shoot you.
Just categories, like sensors?
Yeah, a lot of the sensors. We're seeing a lot of sensor stuff, a lot of medical devices coming out. It's interesting, that whole accessory space is bringing out a lot of interesting new devices.
Things connected to
Yep.
iPhones?
Yeah.
Okay. Over here.
I had a question around on-demand manufacturing.
About?
On-demand manufacturing?
Underground.
On demand.
On demand, oh sorry, yes,
Sorry.
okay.
I was reading about this company called Quanta in Europe, which was helping the one laptop per child guys to manufacture 1,000 units at a time to reduce the cost of manufacturing. Do you have any ideas around that?
Again, we think the proximity to the market with the internet. I mean, if you can go online, you can sell a product online, and you can sell a specific amount. So if it's 1,000 units, and if you're close to the factory where it's being produced, and in today's world, I mean, we can actually have cameras in the factory, so you can actually see it, and you can see the production lines where the product is being manufactured. The complexity will all come down to the raw materials and how complex and how challenging the raw materials are. And if you've got access to the raw materials and you don't need to buy it forward, and if it's off the shelf, and in Shenzhen, in China, in this part of the Pearl River Delta, there's access to a lot of raw materials in stock. So that reduces that whole lead time, and that creates that potential for on-demand.
Okay, the back row.
Can I come back to you again on patents?
Sorry?
Can I come back to you again on patents? Are you advocating that an international patent granted in China is less effective than a local patent raised in China?
We just find that it's, for us, any of the ones we've defended have been ones that have been done, have been issued locally. It's a shorter process to go through to defend it.
So, so we do have this phenomenon where people, in a sense, are designing and really soliciting funds for a product without having a team or a real plan for making those.
Fantastic.
But you know, it's kind of a sign here. I tried to get a number of them to come talk to us, and they don't have a minute. No. You know, they're under the gun to put all this stuff together, whether going to China themselves or figuring out how to start their own process.
I think it's great. I mean, I think especially, you know, the reason we actually work with startups is we love Inexperience. Inexperience is a great innovator, and you know, sometimes people have too much experience and they won't take any risk, whereas the Inexperience is great. We like, you know, I just read this morning that the guys in Pebble are actually gone to China and they're going to build a product. I mean, I think it's great, and I think the other one of the ones we worked with, one of the earlier Kickstarter projects which we worked with, they actually shipped product. They got orders for products to 88 countries. So we shipped it direct from China to all 88 countries from them. And again, that was very complex because you had all of the cross-border challenges and the duties. But it's possible.
Yeah. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, you've caught the leading edge of a very sharp wave. How long will it last?
How long will it last? You look at the products which we work with, they didn't exist 10 years ago. And the industry we're in changes at a very fast pace. It's interesting. There are companies, you look at the garment industry, and I'd spent 10 years in the garment industry, and you know, there hasn't been really innovation in garments, but when you look at the tech world, there's huge innovation, there's huge challenges. The products which we do today did not exist, as I say, 10 years ago, some of them like 5 years ago. For us, we've been in business 17 years, always operating out of China. We've reinvented many, many times, and it's a big challenge for us. And you know, the one thing that we like is that this, you know, where you get close to on-demand manufacturing, you wipe out, you know, excess and unnecessary products that end up in the market or end up in landfill, and that's a good thing for us. And I think as the world becomes smaller, from a, you know, I can show you live cameras in factories in China. I can go to mines in Brazil that are they're mining tantalum that's being used in the capacitors, and you can trace an entire supply chain together. And as that happens, you know, we think that it becomes much flatter and much easier to bring products to market. People become, you know, it's no longer going to be a knowledge-based challenge. It's be a pure execution-based challenge.
Well, you're an intermediary.
Yes.
Are you like the travel agent?
It depends. We have a very large engineering staff in China, and again, that's where we add value, and that's when we work with companies, whether it's the big brands or whether it's the startups. Again, it's helping them to understand how to bring a product to market faster and efficiently, and again, in a sustainable way, which is really important.
Yeah. It's actually an interesting point, because I think one of the fears we have here in America is as we begin outsourcing all manufacturing, it just kind of keeps more and more goes over there. So we don't need the engineering staff, we don't need the design staff. We just call someone up with a crazy idea, you know, and you know, I think it's more the big kind. I think the makers are working in this sort of iterative model of, gosh, you need design, you need engineering, you need manufacturing. Not necessarily able to scale, but let me just sort of ask you that question. So what does the interface look like? Is it just we're sending you files and you're validating them, you know, versus like your question is you know, we have an idea for a circuit board or a product that needs these kind of functions, you guys design it for us.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're expanding our engineering base here purely to be better interface with the customers that are here. we hire between 3 and 5 students out of the D school every year and take them to China. They usually spend 2 to 3 years with us, learning China on the production lines, making the products. Their colleagues get hired by the big brands here. They go work in the company's head offices here, and they end up like pushing drawings around for 2 years. They come work with us. They actually work on the production lines. They understand how to make the products. And usually they come back here and they get hired by the big brands as well. For us, that personal interaction is a hugely important part. And it is a challenge.
Yeah. You know, one of the more interesting models I've seen in the last couple of years is Quirky.
I love Quirky.
You know, it's taking sort of the crowdsourcing of ideas and then marrying it to an expert process. But one of the things is similarly, Ben told me that he was hiring designers because they actually got to make stuff.
Absolutely.
And make it quickly rather than being part of a larger company which had a very, very slow committee-driven sort of approval process.
Yeah, and I think that what Ben is doing with Quirky, I mean his new office in New York is fantastic. You can go in there, you can actually come up with a concept, you can make a product all the way through. And again, he then is utilizing the production process in China directly, and he's doing a phenomenal job with it. Again, what we do is, we do it in a different way. We actually have the people between the US and in China. As that handoff is really important, and building the teams is important.
Right. Good, Tim?
Yeah, Liam, I wondered if you could expand on 2 things that I've heard you say. I'm going to start with the first one, which you showed an amazing slide to me once that said, we replace inventory with information.
Yeah.
And you haven't talked as much about the fulfillment side of your business, and I wonder if you could just tell the story that was behind that slide.
So the inventory with information is that, I can take web orders that are coming from some of the top websites here today, and we're fulfilling within minutes. The orders are going live into China within minutes into our fulfillment center. Historically, that inventory would have been put over here, but because we've collapsed the shipment time, we now have the product sitting on hold.
What I'm thinking of specifically, though, was you showed me a slide that I think you had for some company more inventory in Australia than for the entire United States, because you had real-time visibility into demand here versus batch visibility. And that notion of, even though we are talking, local, with the right kind of information loops, you can in fact, create those much more rapid iteration loops.
And what I showed you, I think it was a globe which had the bubbles of inventory in, and it had, so because we weren't doing we were doing direct fulfillment into the US, we weren't doing direct fulfillment into Europe or into Australia. So what was happening is we were deploying inventory into those other geographies where the product wasn't selling as fast, but you had to have it there to meet the demand, Right. So what was happening was we kept all the production for China, or for the US in China, and you were filling it live every day. So you had very lean inventories coming into the US. So now we're doing fulfillment into Europe as well. So all the inventory, and what was happening was when the product went to end of life, all of the excess product was either in Australia or was in the US or in Europe. There was no inventory.
I think it's a fabulous concept. I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing that I would love to hear you talk a little bit about, and I know this got into a little bit of sort of inside stories, but you talked about the difference between companies run by engineers and companies run by designers. Where the designers sit in the process, and respecting, unnamed companies.
Unnamed companies, yeah. We work with some companies that are very design focused, and there was one incident where we worked with a company that we had a meeting on a Monday morning. I always remember it, and with the design focused company, and it was like Monday morning, about 10 people in the room, and one of the industrial design guys walked into the room, and the room was full of like product development people, engineers, and when the industrial design guy walked in, the room went quiet, and the industrial designer stood at the wall. He started drawing on the wall, and he handed out specs for a product. Within 15 minutes, we all left. Everyone was absolutely crystal clear on what we had to do and what the challenge was. Later that day, we were with another client who's in a similar space for a very similar product category. This company was predominantly a software company that had got into hardware. We went to the meeting, and there were about similar construction of the meeting. engineers, industrial design, marketing. And after about 10 minutes, myself and my colleague, who were at the previous meeting as well, kind of looked at each other and we were saying, wow, I wish somebody from ID would kind of talk up here and give direction. It was amazing. The meeting went on where the marketing person had an argument with the engineering person over the color of a product. And the ID person, who was pretty quiet, didn't talk. And the decision was made in that meeting for the color of a product. When they were, I think one wanted brown, the other wanted orange and pink, and they ended up with a product which was orange, brown, and pink. And we walked out of that meeting making a decision that we weren't taking any risk on this business because they were actually driven by money. They had too much of it. Whereas the other company was driven by design. And the difference in the performance and the outcome of the product was just phenomenal. I mean,
you mentioned taking a risk on the business. What do you mean that it's just it's not worth your time, or do you have in a sense an investment in this?
Yeah, I mean, when you say when we take a risk on on a startup,
yeah, or even you mentioned that large. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for us, of course, if we take risks because we finance the product, we finance the entire production. Today we move somewhere in the region of about close to $10 billion of product at retail value. So it's like, there is risk in it, right? And again, so we want to make sure companies think about and that they understand the decision they're making will have an impact.
Last question. A lot of what you've mentioned is sort of like web ordering. What do you think? What do you think's the future of big box retail?
I think this is. I mean, I remember the conversation I had with Bunny and Steve at Chumby back when they told me they were going to Best Buy, and I said I'm out. It's amazing. Retail contracts, the contracts that big box retailers put in front of startups or any company are prohibitive to entrepreneurship and to innovation. Okay, so now I think that's why I think Kickstarter is great. I think that there's a big change in the way the big retailers are thinking now because of the whole showroom effect where you can walk in, you can an app, you can scan a product and say, okay, I'm going to go buy this, but I'm going to go buy it online. Now the big box retailers are starting to fight back, and what they're having to do is they're having to convert their retail locations to actual warehouses. Okay, so that becomes the warehouse for the inventory. And when you think about it, majority of the products you'll buy online, they're available within a 10 to 15 mile radius. I think I heard the numbers like 80% are available within a 10 to 15 mile radius of you when you buy online, but yet it ships from a much further distance. So if the big box retailers are to survive, they're going to have to convert their retail locations into online order fulfillment.
That's interesting. So it does become local in a way.
It will have to.
Okay. Well, thank you, Liam. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.